started. It is September 26th, 2023 board meeting. And all board members are here, so we definitely have a quorum. So I'm calling our meeting to order. And we will start by our ethics statement, the conflict of interest reminder per NCGS 138A-15E. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this board. Does any member of the board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. Hearing none, if during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the board president. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. Next, do we have any public comments? Someone signed up for public comment? Okay. We do not have any guest discourse this evening. Do we have any correspondence from the authorizer?
We do. In the shared drive, you will find a letter from DPI. It is just acknowledging that OCS consultant Nikki Nowinski presented our mission statement to the Charter School Review Board, and they approved it unanimously. So it's just in there for you all to have and see if you'd like to look at it.
Okay. Next item is our superintendent's report.
Okay, so I have a couple of things for you all this evening. The ADM landed at 9:15 for this year. We had budgeted 9:35, we landed at 9:15. And then in the superintendent report, you can find that in the drive and open it up. It's titled MCS Superintendent Report 9/26/2023. I just laid out some numbers for you so you can see kind of what this means. That initially we had budgeted 935 at $6,429 per child, which gave us a surplus of a little over $40,000. Right now, the state, prior to the budget conversation, told us to increase that by $10 in budgeting, which was then $6,439 per child. Right now, we're sitting in a deficit at that number of $134,000. We have been promised, according to every meeting that I have been in, there will be a significant increase to the per pupil allotment from the state in the state budget. And essentially, in order to balance the budget with 915 children, we need the per pupil allotment to go up to at least $147.27. So for reference, in 2021-2022, the per pupil allotment was increased by $309. Last year it increased by $275. We have every indication that we will at least receive a $200 per pupil allotment. We're thinking it's probably going to be close to $350 increase, but we don't yet know. I didn't hear anything today about the budget. The last I heard, it was still sitting on the governor's desk. I don't know if it's been...
He's going to let it pass pocket, what do you call it, to whatever.
So next
passes
Thursday.
it.
So we'll know probably the following Monday or so what that actual number will be.
Is that actually in the budget itself, or is that the number, or is that determined?
Yeah, they are very good at dodging that number for public consumption. So just for you all to know, this information, this number does not include any local adjustments. Sorry, it does include local adjustments. It does not include any payroll adjustments, our EC headcount adjustments. So there is still some fluidity with this, but we at this point are not concerned. So, and then next is just FYI for you all, our ADM in 21-22 was 889. Last year it was 909. This year it's 915. Continues to increase. And as we continue to move forward with the new facility, the growth, we expect to see increase as well. I just want to let you all know that the State Board of Education did certify the testing data For the 22-23 school year, we went from a 62 to a 67. It's a 9% increase. We had a growth score of 77%. Just for reference, in 21-22, it was 63. We went from 63 to 77%. So I'm going to do a deep dive with you all in October, go over a lot of numbers and a lot of information as I normally do, but I want to let you know that based on this information and through legislature on how OCS awards 3, 7, and 10-year renewals for charter schools, I have no reason to doubt that they will not recommend us for a 10-year renewal, which is really great news. Really, really great news. Next is the engagement survey small group feedback. If you will look in the shared drive, there's just a brief summary. It's titled Engagement Survey Small Group Brief Summary. And I wanted to circle back to this because the Contented Cows partners recommended 3 things that I shared the information with the leadership team, the top line results, the best and the improvements with the entire staff, and I did that on October the 7th. Then they asked that we initiate a schedule of feedback meetings.
October 7th?
August. Did I say October? I'm so sorry. I'm ready for it to be cold. And so I sought out volunteers who would like to meet with me and talk through some of those things and do some sense making as they requested. I initiated that and I led that process. I just felt like they may have been more receptive, or not receptive, but open to sharing more freely. And they were. I'll talk about that in a minute, but I completed those conversations on September the 7th and the 15th. There were 4 different groups. And then I shared those results with the admin team on the 18th. And then finally, the last thing they asked was that we resurvey early, perhaps February of 2024, which I believe is part of the 3-year plan with this. Yeah. Okay. So just some key takeaways. I was really appreciative of how candid they were and how willing they were to just talk to me. I felt like they trusted that when I said it was in a safe space and I would honor my commitment to listening to them, that they really appreciated that. And I got some excellent information out of this. And I will tell you that a lot of the things that they had to say, I hadn't considered. So it was tremendously helpful. So question number 2, we picked some of the ones that I just really struggled to make sense out of. And question number 2, favoritism is not a problem in my area. So we know that not only about half of the staff agreed that it wasn't a problem. And so I said, okay, you're gonna tell me about this. And it was mixed. Some said they had never noticed it. Some said it was a hard question to answer because there might have been differing opinions on what favoritism is and what it looks like in a school. And then some had very clear examples of their opinion of favoritism that has happened, that they have observed, and I will tell you that those have since been addressed and rectified. Without giving too much information, it was not directed at one specific area in the school. There were several across the board, across all of those. Questions 3 and 7. My supervisor helps me find ways to do my job better, and my supervisor does a good job of keeping me informed. It was all about communication, which I had a feeling that was going to be the case, but I wanted to hear from them. That they just wanted to feel like they knew what was coming well in advance, so they can prepare and they can plan. And they wanted more classroom visits and coaching opportunities with admin to come in and give them feedback. How am I doing? What I really love about the staff is they all want to do the very best for the kids, but they also want to know that what they're doing is what's best for kids. They feel it intrinsically, but to hear it from an administrator, I think is of tremendous value to them. So we have since, over the summer, talked about communication and discipline. Those were the two big pieces of this. And so we put together a K-12 staff newsletter. It's released every Friday at noon. It's super fun. We put pictures in there of what's happened during the week. We put trivia questions, and whoever answers it first gets a prize. And then, important things they need to know. But it's a very standard newsletter that they can pretty much use as their roadmap for the next week. So they very much like that. And I think also with the addition of Ms. Dunn as an additional admin, the admin presence has increased. There's more of us, as so it should, but it also allows, Dr. Swartzlander to really get into classes, offer coaching, mentor. She's been covering some staff members who are new to news so they can go watch veteran teachers teach, which is a tremendous learning experience. That peer-to-peer interaction is pretty critical, especially for new staff who are trying still to get plugged in. So that's been really great, and I continue to keep my door open. Question number 12 was, I feel my job is secure as long as I do good work. And that was not favorable. People were very concerned about not having job security even if they did a good job. And so I asked, where's that coming from? And there were some people who've been here long enough who said there's still some residual anxiety, stress with contracts based on when news went into financial probation with the state, there were cuts made. I was here for that. But there were some people that were there then and are still here now. There's not very many of them, but it's still a very real thing for some people. They said it was really attributed to the fact that the offering of work agreements did not happen until the last day of school. It made people very nervous. We waited until mid-May to let them know if they had positions or not. And so I reminded them that we do mid-year reviews, we do summatives, so if someone is really struggling to complete their job responsibilities and essential duties, they know well in advance of May. Action plans happen. We try to work with people to help them improve. And I will say too, the reason why we changed that date was because the year before we gave them out in April, and the staff asked that we not give them out to the end of the school year because it was so disruptive. That there were people who kind of just checked out once they realized that there wasn't a position available for them. And so staff asked that, and we did that based on the leadership team from the staff. But I will tell you, we continue to debate and discuss when is the best time to do this. And I have worked in an organization where there are yearly work agreements for now 14 years. And I still don't know what the right answer is. I don't know what the right answer is. The goal is to keep the school environment as least disrupted as possible. And so I asked them what they thought. And they said, we don't really know. And I said, that was fair, because I don't either. And we're going to work on that. I was really encouraged, though, that in all of the groups, they all said that they have really enjoyed the start to the year. It has felt different. It has felt better and really positive, a lot of enthusiasm. And they said that a lot of things that were a concern for them when they took this survey aren't a concern right now. And that was big for me to hear that. And I was really grateful that they shared that.
When did we do the survey again? I'm trying to remember.
Right at the end of the year. Yeah.
I can't remember what month it was.
Yeah, it was like right around June. Yeah.
It's because we didn't really come up with a plan until April.
So
Pull the pin on that grenade.
It's been a gift, honestly. It really has. And they had 2 pieces of feedback for me to share with Contented Cows, and I'll share them with you. They said that they felt like a lot of the responses might have been a perception issue because of how the questions were worded, how they were perceiving the question. So they said, and I told them I would write it just how they said it, can we revise the words to better fit the educational environment? And here's an example. In question number 25, and I'll read it to you. Grab a hold of it. It says, I feel free to take whatever action is necessary to satisfy our students. Well, 25% answered neither agree nor disagree because they weren't sure what satisfied meant. That was the feedback they gave me. So words like that made it a little tricky for some of them. So could they maybe revise some of those things to say, meet the needs of my students, to help them grow, etc. And then they also asked if they could simplify it to 15 questions and send it out in January or February.
So have you brought
Send
in
it out,
that?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Send it out when?
January or February. And it's item 3 from them was February 2024. So
Have you shared any of that with Contented Cows?
not yet.
So my guess is that, well, from what they told me from the first time, we did actually edit some of the questions, the language in some of the questions, because it said like customers and things
Right.
like that. So I think that probably that first one, especially if you guys got maybe a work group together to kind of make suggestions on all of the questions, I'm guessing that as long as it didn't substantially change the meaning of the questions, that would not be problematic. I will say that
You didn't say what I'm thinking.
the second question, I think that might be something to consider at the end of 3 years, is whether we want to do a survey that is shorter, partly because one of the biggest reasons to do a 3-year survey is for continuity, so that you can compare year over year. But yeah, exactly. And also, these are the questions that they have worked with for like 30 years, right? And I mean, they've adapted them over the 30 years, but so they've been benchmarked and all of that. So, I think, I don't, obviously you should share this with Contented Cows and see what they say, but from my many conversations with them, I really think that's what they're gonna say. And, if we get through these 3 years and the board wants to go a different direction, I think there are other surveys that we could do. Or we could, I think, hire them to develop a completely separate one, but I don't know if it would be as robust. We'd have to ask them.
Also, the January, February timeframe, while I understand probably why, because it's a slower time and they probably got more time to think about it and invest in it. That also is only measuring it halfway through the year. I feel like you're going to get while sometimes stress and end of the year rush brings out the worst, it can also bring out the best, and it also brings out the more truthful kind of responses to things at times, I feel like. So, again, maybe you do it both. I don't know if Contented Cows, we could do it halfway through the year and the end of the year. But
What's interesting to me is, and they shared it with you, Contented Cows suggested February also.
Yeah.
So did they have a reason? Did they share with you why?
No. I mean, I pulled this literally from their report.
Right.
It says resurvey earlier in the upcoming
Yeah.
academic year than was done.
That would be a question I think to ask them, because I thought the same thing. It felt like it was early, but anyway.
they're the experts. So, but I don't want it to be like off the statistical significance of the 3 years.
It'd just be interesting to know why. If there's some optimal reason that we encountered.
Well, even if we could push it back to like March, that gives us more like 1.5, a full semester and half of another semester really more, but that's,
And I wonder too, if changing when you administer it would mess up the measurements from year to year. Like, you're right, you're only measuring a half a year versus a whole year. Would that change the percentages, or would that skew any data?
I'm assuming that the answer to that is no, or that it would be negligible, or I don't think they would have recommended it, but that's definitely a good question to ask.
Or do they have a way of normalizing the data based on, you know, they can sometimes do that live. Smart math that I don't know.
But I will say that, you know, I have followed all the steps that they have asked us to complete. Information was shared that will continue to be a top priority for me. The job security in particular, and trying to navigate that issuance of work agreements and contracts. And continuing to communicate with staff about their job performance consistently and frequently. I think we'll work towards the communication piece and then also that sense of security that they have in their positions.
One thing that popped into my head when you were talking about the job security thing, I wonder if you could do something kind of like college acceptances that are conditional, where you could do something earlier in the, you know, March, April, something like that, and where you meet with the whenever you do, you know, I know you guys give feedback frequently, and you could share sort of, as of today, this is where you are, you know, as long as you don't get any Fs between now and the end of the year, right? Like, you know, we anticipate, you know, offering you another contract. And for the teachers who are, as you said, the teachers who are struggling or were not performing already are aware of that, and that you could just reinforce that.
Yeah.
At least that gives them a little bit, you know, I mean, I know students who had their acceptances to college pulled. So it happens, it's rare, you know, but at least something like that might be a good happy medium.
Are offers ever contingent upon enrollment numbers? Yes. So
All of them are.
I think that would be something we'd have to include in that as well.
It is, yeah, it's in there. Yeah, and board approval too. Okay, I will skip number 4, which is handbooks, and come back to that. I just want to briefly let you know, there is a facility update. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you instead of waiting. We are continuing to develop the site plans. It is going to be right there in the quad. It is going to go the same way this building goes. And the interior plans are pretty much done. We had a meeting for Thursday to discuss the exterior design and finalize the interior design, but about an hour ago that got pushed back to October 3rd. So anyway, but the goal is in October, I will be able to share with you a site plan and hopefully a slideshow that can kind of walk you through all of it. But
Just the interior, not the exterior elevations, right?
but it's exciting. We are adding 21 classrooms, and it's good things, all good things.
Is there like an anticipated groundbreaking?
Let's get the plans done and get the
I'm just wondering if it would
financing.
be done, how long it would take, once everything's financed, everything's done, let's say, you know, once things are ready to move forward, how long would it take? Do you know? Just
From groundbreaking to moving in,
Oh, from groundbreaking to moving in,
they're telling us.
which I'd say 36.
So that's your carpool fun.
Uh-huh.
Carpool fun.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, like you said it, Michelle. She said it's gonna go right there, and all I can think of was like, carpool.
We've already been figuring out what we're gonna do.
And this is the house K5, correct?
It's gonna house 1-5. K's gonna stay where they are. Yeah. It's just the perfect spot for them. Their playground's right there. Adding bathrooms to classrooms is very expensive. They already have them. It's a great little spot to get them acclimated to school, so.
There'll be some comparison with the local.
Yeah.
The Jetsons, remember that? Be great. Okay, the last thing that I have is the parent-student handbook and the employee handbook. They're both in the drive. They are both very large documents. The employee handbook is 115 pages, and the student handbook is 99. So I will tell you all that any changes that were made to either of those documents from last year were done by our attorney, Lisa Gordon-Stella, based on new general statutes that were put into place, new codes of conduct suggested by the Office of Charter Schools, all of the above. And I think it's probably one of the most robust, comprehensive handbooks that I've ever seen. I'm tremendously grateful for the time, effort, and energy that Lisa has put into making sure that everything that we need to be doing, we are doing, and is following every possible general statute that exists.
A lot of those changes were from the most recent legislation.
Yes.
Right.
Which we need to talk about one of them.
That's right.
This is, it's the Parents' Bill of Rights, Senate Bill 49. This is a document that must be board approved. This came from the Senate bill that was approved, now it's general statute. And I don't really know what kind of conversation we can have about it, honestly, because it just kind of is what it is.
Can I ask a couple of questions? So it's not yet in the handbook, but it will be in the handbook, or it's separate?
It will be an appendix.
Appendix, okay. And so I read it, and my question is, there's a lot of highlighted stuff that isn't completed yet. Can we vote on it while we're still waiting on some of the decisions that need to be made at the closer to the end? About who's responsible for what, and certain parts of the policy that look like they need to be completed at the school level. And I'm asking, like, because I feel like we might, from a legal perspective, the documents are complete.
I think part of it is you all need to decide if you want, so like if you go to page 7, that's kind of where it starts. And it's talking about notifications.
Is that the student health notifications?
Yeah.
Yes. Who you would like to have be that person. It can be the board chair, it can be the superintendent, it can be the board's designee.
So we're talking about at the beginning of each school year, a blank person will notify parents about each health care service offered at the school.
I'm sorry. Page 7.
Well, she said, the appendix piece, let's go back to that. When you say appendix, it's going to be attached to the student handbook, just as an appendix on the back side of that. So it's not going to be a completely separate document?
No.
Okay.
But we are required to post this document on our website.
But not the student handbook?
The handbook's there too.
Okay.
But we have
They'll all
to
just
post,
be in together?
well, no, the handbook will be there with it, but then this has to be clearly identified.
Separate? Okay.
Almost like our Title IX policy. Even though it's in our handbook, it still has to be posted.
So if this is law, excuse me, y'all, I have to be plugged in. If this is, current law, we're really not voting to approve it, we're just voting to fill in the blanks. Correct?
So we put you in the corner.
That's my
Computer's
understanding of it. Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry, so just so the highlighted parts, okay, wait, let me back up. So is this a board policy that we're voting on, or is it a school policy that the board's voting on?
It's board.
It's board level.
And so, because a lot of this, a lot of the things that need to be decided are like the process for selecting curriculum and the procedures for learning about the course of study and things like that, that I don't think the board knows. So do we need to go through this and figure out who needs to do what? That was the part that I was just unsure of when I read it.
So
That would be my suggestion.
are there some things that are designated in here, that things that we already do? Or that fit neatly with things that we already do?
It's, my guidance to you all would be that it doesn't have to be approved right now. It doesn't have to be.
We need IT people.
It exists
Is
in
there-
law, so.
Right.
I mean,
Is there a deadline by which we need to have it posted? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. I know they want boards.
Is there anything at the end of the
Yeah,
statute?
The statute became law when it was passed. So
Okay.
it became effective when it was passed, and it said it is applicable for the 2023 to 2024 school year.
So immediately?
Yes.
They are asking for, I observed the State Board of Education meeting on the 12th, and they asked for, actually Superintendent Truitt asked that this DPI and all the schools be given until January to get all the processes and procedures in place, and they said, well, it's a law now, so no. But we understand that it may take some time to put a framework in place to make these things happen, so it's very uncomfortable, the position that I feel like we've been put in, that you all have been put in.
This language, all of this is from our attorney, and it's based on the statute.
And it does, so there is a provision that was added that says public school units shall, one, allow parents to exercise these rights, and two, make the rights contained in this section available to parents electronically or by displaying the information on the website of the public school unit. So it may be enough to satisfy like that prong of the statute by just posting the legislation itself on the website until we can make a more informed decision about some sort of official news charter policy.
I think that's probably right.
That makes good sense. And if, I wonder if you all, if the administration could look through it and put in the things, like you were saying, there are things that you guys already do, right? And make suggestions, and then that way, if there are things that the board needs to decide because they haven't ever been done or whatever, I don't know. Does that make sense?
So will there be a review of each individual school's policy as related to the law to make sure it meets the standard? Because you kind of have like, it's almost like safety where you have a standard basically, and then you review the standard based into the check off all the boxes. Is the will and intent of the policy that which,
To be able to cover all of
Yeah.
the pieces.
There's a part in here, I think, about that says that, that basically says that,
It's like needs its own staff person.
not
Yeah.
compliant, you really need a compliance officer.
It does.
I think the other action piece that the board is going to be responsible for is under 115C-6.35. This governing bodies of public school units shall, in consultation with parents, teachers.
What was that again? Sorry.
Yeah, so it's NC Gen Stat, so general statute.
Right.
115C 76.35.
76.35, okay. Where, is that in the, I'm looking at the bill.
Yeah, it's in the bill. So it is
Page.
the bottom of page 5 of the bill,
Thanks.
of this, or the session law, it's passed now.
Okay, yeah.
And it talks about
Okay.
what duties are of governing bodies, which I think would fall to the board of public school units, shall, in consultation with parents, teachers, administrators, and community partners, develop and adopt policies to promote parental involvement and empowerment in the public school unit. And then it talks about how to do that. And I don't think we can do that today, because I don't think we've consulted with parents, teachers, administrators, or community partners.
This is a consultant.
Don't we already do
Well,
that?
Doesn't this document, doesn't it already establish processes and procedures for, hang on, let me get back to that 35. The
It
school
says-
established policies as
yeah,
well,
it-
follow and provide for parental
Are you just
guidance.
looking, yeah, under F?
Yeah, but I was going on down to G,
Oh, okay.
where it talks about the policies and the procedures.
Yeah, so it already shows in this document, not in the statute, what we're doing.
Because it even gives a time, there's one part earlier where it gives a time frame on a request.
That's down, it's in section I
Yeah.
on page 8, where it talks about timelines for parental requests for information. But there's also something about like
So I wonder if this particular policy that we're looking at would fit that, those procedures. Now, I mean, it's not been in consultation with,
but I think it talks about how we work with parents and community members in that section.
So can we post the original statute and let's maybe go through this, all of us read through this and come back to this next meeting?
And is it appropriate for Dr. Blackwell to make suggestions as to individuals that she think would be appropriate?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, as long as we know, like, track those changes, so what are those recommendations? And I think, while I love Lisa and I know she's doing a good job, I think anything that changes in those student handbooks and parent handbooks, it would be good for us just to see, track changes, to be able to see what changes were made so we can intelligently answer any questions that are asked of us from year to year too. That ship may have sailed for this year on redoing that, but it would be, I would appreciate being able to look at those, just to know what's changed.
I got to expect,
yeah, it's a good little doc, so I can.
See what you add to it.
it's going to have to be right, just like any kind of regulatory, compliance. And it will be an effort. And there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying that there needs to be a way that people are in charge of those particular sections and it's being updated as it is. Because I could see where there's some liability and such that you get into if somebody started going around with you have every single thing covered. You're doing everything that you need to be doing. And then what's the interpretation about how you're doing it? So I kind of look at it like a safety regulation, like you would implement that.
And Dr. Blackwell, do you feel like a lot of these things, this seems overwhelming, but when I think about these things, we already have these policies, we're following these things. So we don't need to recreate the wheel, we just need to, sorry.
Recreate the wheel, I heard that.
And the train went over, so.
A lot of these things we're already doing. So,
See, put them all together.
yes.
But does
But I
that,
mean, does the statute require that we
Some of these are-
There's some that aren't in here.
Right.
That's right, or that we don't have yet. That's
Right.
right.
Well, and I think that it would be best to, rather than just saying refer to the student handbook, I think we're gonna have to specifically say what we're referring to, because otherwise, I think there could be a potential for saying, oh, well, we're not sure if you're in compliance because you haven't pointed us to the specific part. Like, I noticed that on some of the document, you know, we're in the handbook. You said it's a 99-page document.
That's where I was going back to. There needs to be some kind of crosswalk document that looks at every provision of the law, and this is how this is covered. And that's going to have to be, that's really going to be the basis that whoever is your compliance officer, so to speak, that looks at that, is in charge of that.
Is anybody challenging this? Is there any organization out there that's challenging this?
It's what people want.
There will be a lawsuit.
Just out of curiosity.
There's already.
There will be a lawsuit. It will, and I will tell you now, I will probably have to recuse myself because of my job. The fellowship that I oversee and manage, we staff all the 3-judge panels, and constitutional challenges or to acts enacted by the General Assembly are automatically done in 3-judge panel cases.
And so that, but that's once a lawsuit's filed.
And once it's determined that it makes a facial challenge to the law, it gets referred to a 3-judge panel.
And we have policies, but we may have to revise policy. We'll have to look at policies and make sure there's nothing within that conflicts too.
Is Lisa already cross-referenced that and stuff though?
As best she can in here,
Yeah.
without our own news charter school policies.
Okay. So she hadn't looked at those policies too? Okay. Thank you for making everything harder.
It gives some, that's what it gives some more money.
Yes.
Okay, so I
would
guess,
say, for the record, this smacks of exactly going back to where we were at COVID, where you hand us stuff
let's say here,
and say, here, you get to decide, we're gonna make you the bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
That was very tiresome
What's a biometric?
for anybody who's listening,
Biometric
or recording
scan.
or what.
What's a biometric scan? Oh, fingerprint. Oh, like when you go in? Okay.
It has within the last
So if they
couple
use
of
like a phone, iPhone,
I can tell you what it.
if they use a tablet, it's got
The
a
governor vetoed it, but it may.
thumb
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
then you've got their
It
biometric
was
scan.
a super majority, so the vote veto override
If you've
was
got-
on August 16th, so.
That's
so-
PII.
So here's the other thing, this thing,
Personal
just,
identifying information.
August 16th, but we're supposed to be able to do all of this for this
If
school
you
year.
have tablet.
We already
Immediately.
started- We already started the school year.
Right, exactly.
That's why the superintendent was asking
Yeah.
for everybody to
You
just.
use- August 16th is when it was signed.
You stored their biometric scan.
Just like,
it would be nice if, is when they made these laws, if they
it also
would,
shows my age.
it would be nice if when they made the laws, they would consult with those of us that are having to actually deal with them on the ground.
Heck, I don't even care about that. Don't try to make us, like, if you don't do it, then you own it.
Yeah.
Don't pass the buck for us to be the bad guys down here.
That's no way it is.
It's not.
And don't pass it, right, after our school year has already started and tell us that we have to have it all done for the start of the school year. But,
No, we're not
So-
on the ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
yeah, there's,
There's-
it's big.
So I guess at this point, Dr. Blackwell, you're gonna give us review, give us some feedback with regard to suggestions.
What we already have in
In
place,
place.
what my guidance would be on putting into place that we don't have.
And then, I guess as a board, we need to review this before the next board meeting. With, as far as I know that next board meeting, we're doing a data deep dive. Is that gonna be, I'm just wondering, I don't know how much time that will take versus if this is something, if it's something we need to move on immediately in October, or if we need to do it.
And you know what, between now and then, the melts may happen,
Yeah.
you know?
I haven't gone through yet.
Yeah. So.
There's still time.
They're still there, they're still there. So, yeah, I normally talk for about 45 minutes when I do my data.
Well, I guess we'll just put it on the agenda for next time with everyone do our very best to try and review it and have,
So I have two questions. The first is, are we going to post the session law, the text of the session law? Because the
Yes.
revisor statutes hasn't revised the statutes yet. So I would suggest that we post the session law that's available on NCGA to the website to at least have that parents
Yes.
bill of rights posted.
Right.
I think that will at least put us in more so compliance than most of the
Correct,
other
because I think
schools.
the other one is where it says to establish these things and we're establishing them. Or showing that we've already established them. My other question was, is administration or the attorney for the school going to go through and do more in-depth cross-referencing, or is that something that the board needs to do?
I can ask.
Cross-referencing.
Within
Within
the
the
document into our
Policies.
correct, because a lot of it just says, please refer to the, the handbook, and I'm like, well, what part of that?
We can probably add in the page numbers.
That could be our work plan for the next 2 years. I think you gotta try to get somebody that has
You didn't run that like that hot committee, so I'm not called to run that.
I'm on the committee that I agreed for one more year to serve committee. Remember that.
No, this is not the wording of statute.
No, that's the document that they have changed to make it look like the statute, but here's the actual like
Session law to Brad.
that's
so we
here,
can post it.
that says, like, that has all the parents' bill of rights.
Okay, all right. So the session law doesn't have this blank.
Not the thing that Lisa did, but is that it?
That's the actual
Yep.
session law.
The statute, right, beside it.
Just make sure it's the correct version, the one that's actually signed.
General Assembly of North Carolina, session law 2023-106.
Just make sure it's the correct version.
This one isn't signed. It said it became law on 5:57 PM on the 16th of August, but it's not signed. I don't have signatures on it.
This one is signed. So
I
the
think
one
it's
I have
signed, it has like
Go to
a,
the bottom, does it say sign, S?
S,
And then it has the
the
name, and then it has became law
That's what that
notwithstanding.
means.
yeah, the S.
Yeah, and then it says became law notwithstanding the objection. of the
57.
governor. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, I will take care of that.
And one other question too, I wonder if, not because I don't want us, the board, to have to do it, but there are a lot of places where it asks for who at the school is gonna be responsible for things.
You want me to make suggestions?
That would be fabulous,
Got it,
because we don't wanna pick, just randomly pick people.
Sure.
I say Benji runs it all.
Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
Second.
What's that on TV when they say you gotta ask Markham or whatever, that commercial? Yeah, what do we do? Ask BDO or,
Oh, yeah.
advisors.
Uh-huh. Is that Benji?
That's it.
Jonas Benji.
That's Benji, exactly.
There you go, okay.
Okay, so are we good on that?
Well, we're as good as we're
As good as we are gonna get right now. Okay, is
We
there,
have a charted plan, right?
okay, well, we're still on superintendent's report. So, did you, the handbook?
So you can just press pause on that. Let's wrap up, wrap up this separately. Go ahead and get the handbooks done. They're already in place. It's, almost the end of the second month of school, so I'll be happy to get those track changes for you.
If it's too much
And
this
we'll-
year, then that's fine. I just
Absolutely
want
make
to
that
put it on
change
record
next
that we need to
Absolutely.
be able to track that. This year, I don't know how much change there was, but it sounds like if this was added, there may have been.
Do we have
This isn't added
an
yet,
overview of the changes?
but it will be.
So
That's what I'm
the
asking.
majority of the changes
I'm just
were from
personally-
the new
They were
legislation.
from the new legislation.
Oh, okay.
Not just that Senate bill that we just looked at, but there were the other ones. Was it you that sent them? Someone sent them out.
I did, well, Lisa sent them out.
That's right, Lisa sent them
Lisa
out.
sent them out. She sent them out to board chairs and.
Oh, I should have done it. I should have passed them on. Sorry. I will do that tonight.
You got the track changes?
No. So Lisa Gordon Stella, maybe I did. Did
I mean, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. It was an email that Lisa Gordon Stella sent out, must have been just to board chairs, about 4 specific bills that had passed.
Yeah, we didn't get that.
I got it, but I think that's because she still wasn't sure who should get it.
With the passport check.
And I think that's probably why we were confused, because we both got it, and so probably made an assumption that you all did, sorry.
I'm gonna do it, actually, I'm gonna do it.
But I do think that the handbook is supposed to be approved by the board. And so,
There was the, I believe there's an anti-bullying aspect of it that was added.
Non-Title IX updates.
she sent 4 policies that needed to be updated based on changes to the law. And that she was recommending, and so those were just put in verbatim, right? Melissa?
They were,
Based on her recommendations.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go back through, I'm not able to look at it at the time, but.
It comes to make that the school interpretation for draft.
Did you have it tonight?
Based on you hours full terms. Right. Based on the statute. And that's why there's
That might have been
some
something.
mistakes that they there's decisions that have to be made.
So,
To do what at the school. It just says that somebody has to do it, but it doesn't us to make a
this
decision.
is supposed to be that's completed.
And I think you're right. We have some of those already in place.
Yes.
It's just somehow the statute needs to be implemented.
Yeah, these are the ones.
We have done all of this, here it is. Okay, but I do think there's a.
The deadline, please.
But I think there's going to be things that do in establishing the policy, like compiling the we can post
Maybe that email right there tries to subtract right there. There's 3.
at least that heat is all of.
So definitely the major changes, I don't know if they're the only changes that were made to the handbook. They're the things that are new or were substantially changed based on her recommendations, but I don't know whether admin made specific changes.
Make any changes to that, you want to make changes to Lisa told you to, rather than that.
So you're sending that to everybody?
It was a legal alert,
She's
that's what I
sending
was looking for.
the info to everybody that we got from Lisa, from our lawyer, with the specific changes that she was recommending to the handbook.
And I do apologize for not sending that out, and I will make note to be able to make sure I send that out. No, it came in as a legal alert.
Oh, okay.
But I was just
Because I got it too.
Yeah.
And Dr. Blackwell, you're going to send the track change, is that correct? I'm just trying to get in the minutes. All right.
But I think there's a way if you can put it, you copy and paste them in a Word document, that then you can compare and contrast
I
them.
mean, there's a button you can click to track changes. But I don't know if we want to see all of it. I mean, that may be hard to see. Again, I don't want it to be a ton, like I don't want to put 4 more hours worth of stuff and pulling through that to fix. But you just tell us if it's too hard, let us know. And if we can add it to next year's, make sure it's done for next year. But if we can do it, it would be appreciated. I think everybody would like to see the track changes.
Given that right now the handbooks have not been officially approved, I'd like to make a motion to approve the handbooks as written now, and then if we need to, if people have concerns and would like to bring them at a future meeting to potentially make changes, But I'd like to make a motion to approve the handbooks as they are right now.
I have a motion, is there a second?
Should we add something in your original motion before somebody seconds it to say that, or did you add that language in there that we can come back to it and edit it later?
Yeah, we can always
We can always-
come back. If there are changes in it, we can always come back.
Trying to clean the motion, you know?
Well, I can say it however you would like, or I'll withdraw my motion and you can make one.
No, we don't want that.
Boy, then I would have to get involved. You know.
I just think it's important that we have
I agree.
approved handbooks and not that they have to be like the end all be all.
Doesn't mean we can't make changes because, you know,
Yes.
We reserve the right.
that's right.
I mean, we can always vote to change it.
Yeah,
That's right.
yes.
Was your motion for both handbooks or one of these?
Both. Sorry,
I
that
second.
wasn't clear. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion on the approval of the parent and student handbook and the employee handbook as written?
All the questions.
Hearing none, I will, I would like to do one more better.
You can answer.
Okay, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. All opposed?
There you go.
Ayes have it.
He's just testing the system.
Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Is that all for the superintendent's report? It is. Okay. Financial report.
Well, it's quite underwhelming. As of August 31st, we'd only received $8,256 from the local funds that are owed to us, leaving a remaining balance of $1.7 million. The rest of these numbers, you are welcome to look at the financial report, but because we don't have a budget, we're basing it on per pupil allotment that we know is going to increase. And so right now, we're just really waiting for next week to come so we can get some better numbers and I can get you some more accurate information. But the account balances are very close to what they were. Operating balance is $2.4 million. The retirement escrow account remains around $50,000. The contingency funds are at $865,000 for a total of $3.3 million. So hopefully we'll
When do
start
we
to see
anticipate getting the other, what was it,
1.7 million. Well, hopefully we'll start to receive those payments more substantially in September, but they do,
It's almost the end of September.
October, my apologies.
They don't have much time.
And these are the local funds that were,
Yeah,
and same thing happened last year,
Historically,
right?
yes,
Every-
historically, every year.
every year, yeah.
Because we improve the budget
Yes,
and spend.
yes. So hopefully that will all be resolved very soon. That is now all.
Okay, moving on to our standing committee reports, our governance committee.
I'm sorry, I need to go back to parents' bill of rights one more time. I apologize, I'm not going to get into it, I promise. But we talked about posting the statute. So is that something that Dr. Blackwell can do on her own?
Yes.
Or do we need to vote on that?
I've already-
All right, that's all I need.
Okay, governance committee.
Governance committee did not meet since our last meeting.
Financial oversight committee.
We're reconvening on the.
Y'all having a committee meeting within our meeting?
We did have a meeting, but neither one of us can remember. We both slept since then. What did we talk about? We talked about a lot of things that are.
One that we talked about the building?
Yeah, we talked a lot about the building. We talked a lot about
The money.
the fundraising, and where the money was going to, moving money. There's some
Yeah.
processes that have got to be ironed out. Should we talk about that?
Yes.
Yes, we do need to talk about that. Okay. Whew, thanks, Paul.
Speaking of compliance.
Speaking of compliance, so when this building that we're sitting in was built, apparently we transferred over a lump sum of money, which is why they came to us and wanted that lump sum of money approved. So their understanding was that we were just going to transfer up to $2 million over, right? That's what they thought.
That's what they want.
Building,
Facilities board.
facilities board, facilities board. So, because that's how they did it to build this building, they transferred the money over, and then they just paid out of it without any oversight from us. And that caused us some heartburn, which I can see by the expressions on some of the face around the table, that caused us some heartburn in this group as well. So we are going to meet this Friday over lunch at a suspect place for a superintendent to be hanging out at lunch. It's not really. It's not really. But, we're going to Howie's. Exactly. It's not that big of a deal what I told her to talk with the facilities board folks about coming up with a better process and procedure to not just transfer over a lump sum of money. So prayers and blessings for that meeting.
I can tell you that I have talked with Acadia and I've talked with our auditor, Jay Sharp. I talked with him just a second, I had a chance to go in on that. We cannot have the facilities board invoice us for $2 million and we transfer that money over.
It's got to be specific invoices. Yeah.
Jay said you can absolutely, you cannot do that. What you can do, what we can do is we can create a prepaid rent agreement where we prepay our rent and give it to them that way. Or we could give them a loan and charge them interest. So,
I like that idea.
But you can't, but
I
the,
really don't want to take that group off. So,
Those are the two options.
but you can't,
Just charging interest.
Said or available.
can you charge interest? Can you put public funds in an account and charge?
He said if we didn't charge interest, it would look very suspect to the state.
So the state looks for you to charge interest, because I know you can't do it on federal funds, if there's any federal money.
No,
no.
they're their own 501.
So let's educate the board members on
How about
that
that?
quickly. So the facilities board apparently was created by some of the founders of the school. They actually hold, help me y'all, because I'm not exactly sure on this one. They hold the land and the building, and we pay them rent for the facility.
So when they refinanced a couple of years ago, they needed our approval to secure the mortgage. And we were under the understanding that by agreeing to do that, our rent would go down. It has not. So,
Is that not in writing?
Long before most of us were, if all of us, were you around?
No, but I know enough about when
I
that
don't.
started.
This was, it was very much done with some, these are folks who are trustworthy folks. I think it was very much a gentleman's agreement at the
They
time.
put their own money into
And they put their own money into it. And so
Yes.
it's not like we're dealing with some
no.
shady characters.
Right.
But in 2023, with auditors and people looking at us and us growing, we need to be a little more formal on processes.
And I think there were misunderstandings. I don't necessarily think that anyone did anything intentionally, but that's just an example of why I think it's really important that we do.
And this is not an uncommon thing, apparently. Like when I first got on the board, I was like, why are they in existence? Why do we need these two separate entities? But apparently in the charter school world, this is a lot more common than what I would have ever thought.
And you'll see a lot of those are the older schools that began when there was little money and it was kind of a bootstrap effort. And as more money is put towards these things, you're going to see it get more technically sophisticated, I guess.
And I do think that there was something, I don't understand it well enough, but I think that part of the intent of having them separate was to protect the school and to separate the financial part from the running of the school.
Right,
That
right.
it was something about protect, like,
They didn't want, school superintendents to have to build schools while creating curriculum at the same time. I mean, it makes sense, but again, I'm thinking now that we're established and it's becoming more sophisticated, we need to develop the policies and procedures to be able to pay the bills for this new building. So we're going to need to talk about that. What else do we talk about? The finance. I mean, is that, there's a lot of conversations about fundraising and payment and loan securing. The loan is they're still working on the FDA or USDA loan. And we just don't have the final say on that, but we're getting all the paperwork together and that's being handled by the facilities board.
The school has submitted all
All
the
the
things we're
stuff.
supposed to submit.
so see, they do the mortgages, they do the loans, and
Is there any liability on the school and this board in terms of how that money is used once it's handled?
That's
That's
the
what
topic
we're
of the, and also,
Because in the past, it was not necessarily, I think there was a gentleman's agreement.
but when people come and ask you, you invested this amount of money in this, how do you ensure that you get the return on that public investment that went into that? So there's got to be,
It's all good things because it's all growth. It means we're growing in the right direction to be able to have these conversations. And it's because of a lot of the work that was done by those ladies and gentlemen from when we did that. So, yes, there's lots of other exciting things that we hope to be able to talk about later meetings. But I'm, like as excited as I am about the building, I'm more excited about how the funding for this building is all going to come together. The other thing, finance, this was the other thing. We talked about Booster Club having representation at this meeting to be able to give a Booster Club report. Since they are a separate 501c3 as well, and since they have, they've got their own financial thing, and since they're so close together, we did talk about that at our last meeting as well. I think you were
I'd
going to
like
reach
to
out.
formally acknowledge that I dropped the ball, but not yet
No.
reach out to them.
That's fine.
so.
They
They're
have
dropping
done
the
that in
ball.
the past. They used to
So
do that.
historically, that's what I was gonna say, historically, they were a standing,
Yeah.
they were a standing item on our.
And we talked about, and we just talked about it last meeting, and we were going to invite them again and start doing it again.
Right.
And we didn't put a time frame on it, so you're good to do it now.
I think it would be very beneficial to make it clear that we are doing that because they are a separate entity. Because I think the reason that we took them off, it was before I was chair, but I think the reason that we took them off is because a lot of the other groups around the school were frustrated that they didn't get the same opportunity to speak to the board on a regular basis. So like, and I don't even want to name any of the groups because I don't remember which ones. I don't even know if we knew which ones. It was just sort of that there were different organizations within the school who didn't understand why sports got to talk directly to the board at every meeting and the other, you know.
They're separate entities.
Right, I'm saying, I think it'd be really important that we make it
Make
clear
clear.
that that's why they do that. It's not because we care more about sports than we do about,
Right.
you know, fill in the blank, robotics or, you know, drama or whatever. Because I do think that's why it sort of stopped. So,
But since they're separate 501c3.
absolutely.
it's-
I think it's just, yeah. It's good.
I think that concludes our report as we remember it.
Yeah.
I think I was driving that morning too, so.
Okay, so let's see, we've had our financial oversight committee, we've had a finance committee report, financial report. And risk management.
Risk management did not meet.
Ad hoc committees, facilities committees,
Just what I mentioned earlier.
and strategic planning committee.
Strategic Planning Committee did meet, and if you look in the drive, there's a file called Outcome Goals. That is what we worked on. And if you'll check that out, it's the strategic outcomes for News Charter School. It's the same form, same document that we have had in the past. Just gone back and updated the goals and objectives for the school for this year, 23/24, and also 24/25. Y'all want to read through that? Have you already had a chance to look at those? Starts out with relative performance. So our objective is for the school to rank in the top 30% of K-12 charter schools in the state by the end of the school year. That's for this year, for this school year. For next school year, 24/25, News Charter School will rank in the top 25% of the charter schools in the state. If you'll look at part 3 there, News Charter School will rank in the top 50% of the K-12 charter schools in our district. That's the North Central District of North Carolina, using the report card grade by the end of 23/24. And for part 4, same type of objective, just for 24/25 school year, for us to improve our ranking to the top 35% of K-12 charter schools in our district. And then the last point, Roman numeral 5, News Charter School will score a B-rated school or higher on the school performance grade as determined by the school report card by the end of the school year. So those are the relative performance factors, and you see in red our starting point, jumping off point. Next up is the absolute performance. So this is for the first bullet point, a minimum of 65% of students will meet grade level proficiency, scoring a 3, 4, or 5 in EOG and EOC by the end of this school year. And then the second bullet point, a minimum of 67% of students will meet grade level proficiency on all EOG and EOC by the end of 24/25 school year. Third item is school growth. News Charter School will meet or exceed school growth standard as determined by the EVOS score on the state report card. That is meet or exceed. And then number 4, stay the same. This is the News Charter School demonstrating the following traits: the portrait of the NCS student, and those objectives there stay the same: communicator, collaborator, critical, creative thinker, goal-directed and resilient, ethical, global citizen, and adaptable and flexible. Any questions on those? Any discussion on those? Liz, did you have anything to add to that? I know there was one that you were waiting on, EVOS scores. Do we need to review at a later date? Is this just for information tonight and then vote later? Okay. So
We're still going through now. EVOS doesn't tell us grade level expected proficiency per grade level. They do it per child. So then we have to calculate that based on the students, and they break it apart per kid. And every child has a proficiency score that's taken an EOG the year before. So if they come from homeschool or private school, we don't have a growth measure for them. So that also kind of skews it a bit. But it's broken apart into 70% and above, which we would consider those kids to be proficient. 40 to 70, that's what we call our bubble kids. Those are the kids that will either push and grow and they'll pass, or not, and they won't pass. And then the 40% and below are the ones that EVOS says will not be proficient. So it takes quite a bit of time to pull all of that data, and because we're a K-12 school, we have 10 plus indicators of growth. So I'm working on getting those numbers for you all to have a very clear understanding. My guess was for that absolute performance that we would be at 65%. That's just based on the 57, 60, and 62 in the past 3 years. But I'll have a better idea once I finish up on those numbers.
And this will fit in here next month anyway. It'll be in a deep dive academically, so
Sure.
just give everybody a chance to review it over the next month, and then we can review and approve next month.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
So, because I can't remember specifically from last year, did you add any specific new targets, or was it just adjusting them?
The only new targets was Part 1, number 3 and 4, Melissa asked that we break up into the local charter school district. So the local charter school district was added, the North Central District of North Carolina. So that is a comparison of our direct competition locally.
Got it.
So number 3 and number 4 in Part 1 were added.
Okay, because I was like, I thought there were only 3 in that first one section last time, so, okay, perfect,
And
thank you.
the North Central District, right now, we're sitting 13 out of 17. It
Okay,
is
Very strong competition.
tremendously competitive. Chatham Charter, Woods Charter, Franklin Academy.
it's wrong.
They're not K-12.
Okay.
There's some significant powerhouse charter schools that I want to know that we can compete with. Durham Charter, Community School of the Visual and Digital Arts is doing really well. There's a lot of really strong schools, as you can tell by the fact that we're 13 out of 17. The Research Triangle Charter's in there. So it's a big audacious goal that I want to make sure we're working towards.
Thank you.
But the red part shows our performance trend over the years. We've got more information to go along with that. That just gives everybody kind of a benchmark to set ourselves from.
Thank you, this looks good.
Yep, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, so do we need to, are we going to wait on that?
Yeah, just wait until we get more information
Okay.
to finalize it next month.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so that concludes all of our committee reports. We don't have any unfinished business or new business. So I do believe we need to go into closed session for personnel matters. So I will entertain a motion to go into closed session for personnel discussion pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. We're going into closed session.